Welcome to something I'm trying, a duel review. Duel review. Not duel like whatever the hell I just did, but duel like two movies. We have Captain Marvel, and we have Captain Marvel. DC's Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. I just figured, because I saw Captain Marvel, I saw it during spring break, so it was about a month ago, and it's just, I was kind of like, I just didn't get around to reviewing it. I was very busy for the past month, so I didn't review it. And then recently, last weekend, I saw Shazam, the latest DCEU movie. Although they're barely even connecting the movies anymore, so I don't know if I can even call it the DC. I guess technically still is. Well, what do I have to say except, holy cow, Shazam is really good, and Captain Marvel is not as good, but I'm not just gonna trash Captain Marvel, because I wouldn't say it was bad at all. I haven't really been bored watching a DC. I haven't been bored watching a Marvel movie since probably since before I started watching them in theaters. I think since Winter Soldier, I haven't really been bored watching any Marvel movies. Thor the Dark World was the last truly boring Marvel movie. Because they've, figured out how to, sort of, call it formulaic all you want, you wouldn't be wrong, but they figured out how to just sort of do this, consistent humor style thing for the MCU that keeps the movies moving at a brisk pace and keeps the movies lively and energized. Because the best way I would describe Thor the Dark World is sleepy. That movie just puts you to sleep. Marvel movies, at least, they don't put me to sleep. They're too high energy, there's too many jokes, that kind of thing. And Captain Marvel is a standard Marvel movie of, just recent Marvel movies. It's inoffensive, it's not irritating. There's parts of it that are maybe a little irritating, but it's just kind of, boring. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't bored when I was watching it, so I struggle to say it was boring, but, it's so forgettable. It's so forgettable. Even more forgettable than Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I didn't even review because it was so forgettable. At least Ant-Man and the Wasp had, some really fun, high-energy action. Captain Marvel, I mean, it was just, kind of whatever. Honestly, the best part was just seeing, Nick Fury and Coulson and all the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. Not that I didn't care about anything happening with Captain Marvel, the character. With, Brie Larson's character, but I was just kind of I don't know. There's been a lot of controversy on the internet about this movie, and personally, I think the controversy is all a bunch of bullcrap. The movie, I came out of the movie and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. I don't think people need to rag on it so hard. I'd say it lies in a similar position as Black Panther, where both movies have taken some heat for being agenda pushing movies that are rather just kind of boring. People are harder on those two movies because they see them as agenda pushing movies, which I mean I kind of get, but at the same time neither of them really push an agenda all that hard. Black Panther is very clearly set in its own little pocket of the universe. There's not really much. I mean, I guess the villain has something to say about racism, but, it's the villain, not the heroes. They don't care. And Captain Marvel doesn't really push a feminist agenda. It just has kind of a boring lead female character where, I mean, it's not that she's like completely devoid of being interesting, but I think they leaned a little too hard on they were like strong badass female character and focused on writing that and kind of forgot the character part of it. They were like, oh, she's strong, she's female, she's a badass. They have some plot stuff about her losing her memory, but it's like they don't write a lot into her character. And like, I just don't think Brie Larson is as charismatic as a lot of the MCU actors are. They're really good at getting like charismatic actors. She's not bad, but she's not quite as amazing. And I've said before recently that I often wait to review movies because I want to think about whether or not they hold up. And Captain Marvel, I'll say, is a perfect example of a movie that it's alright. I enjoyed it a lot when I was watching it, there are a few interesting things that it does. Like, it has a twist midway through where the bad guy isn't who you think they are, and that's fun. But it ultimately, it took me like a week or two to just be like, oh, okay, I don't care about that movie anymore. It happened. And you don't need to see it for Endgame. Like, I've heard people say, oh, I haven't seen Captain Marvel, I didn't watch Captain Marvel, so I don't know about Endgame. You don't need to see it for Endgame. There's literally, like, I thought the movie was going to have some crazy thing happen at the end that would explain why Captain Marvel could never come back and help them before, but no. Spoiler alert, basically she just goes off to help people on other planets, and Nick Fury, and she gives him the pager and is like, hey, Nick Fury, message me if there's an emergency. And apparently none of the previous events were big enough emergencies for him to message her. So, whatever. I mean, granted, he's kind of been out of commission for a lot of the movies. Like, if he had been an active part in the Infinity War fight and knew how bad it was, he probably would have called her before everybody started disappearing. But that's whatever. You basically... None of the Marvel movies since Infinity War have been really crucial to the... You could easily watch Endgame without watching anything that came in between Infinity War and Endgame. All you need to know is there's a character called Captain Marvel, and she's going to show up and help, and Ant-Man is in tiny quantum realm, and all the people who sent him there and were supposed to pull him out disappeared, so he's stuck right now. And that was the Ant-Man and the Wasp post-credit scene, which you can literally just look up on YouTube. So ultimately, my point of this is Captain Marvel, Marvel's Captain Marvel, is a movie that it's forgettable. It's forgettable. I hesitate to rag on it because I feel like there's a ravenous army of, like, haters on the internet, whether it be just like Marvel haters or sexist people. Don't flame me, but like, isn't it a bit weird that the only two MCU movies to really garner internet like annoyance are the one starring a black dude and the one starring a woman? Like, come on. So whether it's like just female haters, Marvel haters, superhero movie haters, like, there's a lot of people who are just like if I say it's bad, they're gonna come in and be like, haha, you said it's bad, except nobody actually cares about my opinion, so I don't know. I'm not... My opinion. Nobody cares about my opinion. But maybe people do, because I do get more views on my reviews than most videos. I'm getting off track. Okay. So now we get into the I don't know why I even made this a comparison video, because there's really nothing to compare. Shazam is so much better than Captain Marvel. I'll say it. Finally, DC outranked Marvel in their two movies that came around at the same... The DC Captain Marvel outshines the Marvel Captain Marvel. Easily. And the reason for that is that it's just fun. Like, Captain Marvel is kind of fun in the same way that most Marvel movies are fun. There's jokey jokes or whatever, but Shazam is just I think it's a more inherently interesting concept. It's basically people compare it to Big as a superhero movie, and I mean that's not a. The premise is basically that he can turn it. I mean, it's not exactly Big because he can turn back into a kid whenever he wants, but it's a kid superhero, and Shazam is very kid-like. Zachary Levi does a great job making Shazam feel like a kid in a big Superman's body, and it's funny. And he's with all the characters are great. The kid who's his best friend is great. Even the foster family that he's with is great. That's another thing that I didn't expect. I expected this to be a really funny, fun movie, and it absolutely was. It was hilarious and like super fun to watch him run around. But one thing I didn't expect was it does tug at your heartstrings a little bit. Like, basically, it starts out and Billy Batson, the kid who turns into Shazam, is an orphan, and he's an orphan for a really weird reason. He got lost at a fair with his mom. Like, he got separated from his mom and then just never found her. Like, nobody could ever find her. So he's bouncing from foster home to foster home. He's running away, the standard troubled orphan story. And I was like, oh god, are they going to do this? But the movie actually really excellently avoids the cliches that come with, stories about orphan children. Because, getting into minor spoilers here, so if you want to just, skip a few minutes ahead, He gets adopted by this foster family after running away at a time, and I'm like, oh god, great. A boring foster parent characters that nobody cares about, that he's going to run away from, and we're going to support him running away from them because they're shitty parents. Because that's how it usually is with these movies, right? But then he goes to their house, and they are like the nicest parents ever. They're great. They're great. They have a whole little family going on, a super nice house. They're super supportive of him, even when they think he's run away at one point because he turns into Shazam or whatever, and he can't get back. There's a scene between them where they're like, oh no, he's run away, and they were both foster kids, the two parents, when they were children. So they're like, we used to run away, and the dad's like, we used to run away when we were younger. It's okay. We'll just help him get through it. They have this. I don't remember exactly what the line was, but it's something like, we can accept him as a family as much as we want, but he has to accept us as well, and so it's not our fault if he doesn't accept us. It's going to take time. So they're super understanding and just sweet, and the whole movie has this great family message, and eventually he does find his mom. More spoilers, and that's a great scene too, because he goes to her apartment that she's at, and he knocks on the door, and she comes out, and it's clearly this low rent, rundown kind of area, and she's like, oh, and then she reveals the reason that he never found her, because that's what early in the movie I was like, what? How did he never find her? He never found her because she didn't want to be found, which, I mean, no shit. That's what the adoption agency people were telling him, but, I mean, it's kind of a closure thing. If I was orphaned like that, by just losing my mom in a crowd, I'd be determined to find some sense of closure, too. I'd be like, where the hell did she go? But apparently she's like, I was 17 when I had you. I had no support from father. And they even replay the earlier scene where he's with his mom again. And something, I think they changed the lighting or something. They might have even refilmed it. I don't know, because it seemed ever so slightly different. But something about it, you could tell the lines where she seemed agitated with the kid. It seemed just sort of playful mom and kid banter in the original scene, but then when you see it from her perspective, it's oh wait, she's stressed out and not ready to be a parent, and so basically she gives him up. She sees him and she's like, the police could probably do a better job of taking care of him, and on one hand that's a crappy thing to do, but on the other hand, it's an understandable decision from the perspective of a single mother. And then the way Billy Batson responds to it is really mature too. He doesn't flip out and be like, "Why did you never find me? Why'd you lie to me?" He doesn't even. She basically asks him. She's like, "You're doing fine, right?" Because she's kind of feels guilty about it, and he's like, he doesn't even tell her that he's been looking for her all his life. He's just like, "Yeah, I'm doing fine. I've got to go back to my family." That's all he says, and then he leaves. And he gives her back the little souvenir that she got for him right before she lost him, and he's like, "You'll need this more than me." And it's just like, oh, I think I physically out loud said "aw" when he said, "I'm gonna go back to my family." Like, I mean, it's not a plot that's never been done before. Of course he was gonna find that the foster family was his real family, but I just like how maturely that storyline was handled. There was no dumb scene where the kid blows up at his real mom for leaving him. There was no scene where the kid blows up at his foster parents for wanting to adopt him. There was no scenes where the foster parents misunderstood him or mistreated him or any of the standard like orphan story cliches. And it sounds weird that I'm talking about that element so much rather than the superhero element. But honestly, like, there's not much to say about the superhero element. What you expect is pretty much what you get. Just fun, learning how to have superpowers for the first time, adventure story. And then there's the villain, who I actually thought was more interesting than you would expect. I've seen a lot of people say he was kind of a low point, but I really don't think he was. For one thing, the movie starts out with his origin, which is something I think more movies should actually do. Start out with the villain origin story, then go to the hero. That in my opinion, that makes you care about the villain more. Like, I cared about the villain more because the movie started out with his origin, and he has a pretty interesting origin, I think. They also, I think, on paper, this villain is very similar to a lot of Marvel, like generic Marvel business corporate baddies who just like want power. But the way they use him, by introducing him first, giving him a sort of different backstory, even like the character design, the costuming is distinct, and above all, how violent he is. There's one scene where he confronts his father, who mistreated him all his life, now that he's got, like, the evil demon powers, and he goes to his brother, who's being all cocky and smarmy, and I thought he was just gonna throw him against the wall. Spoiler alert, this is a funny scene. I mean, I don't know, I think I'm kind of spoiling the whole movie. Not the whole movie, I guess I'm not spoiling the whole movie, but I'm spoiling, like, certain scenes, which I find it really hard to not do that. If I actually care about a movie, and I want to talk about that movie, then I'm going to be spoiling scenes. He throws him out the window. He throws his brother out the window, gives this cheesy one-liner line that connects to an earlier scene that shouldn't work, but totally does, because you're just, like, in shock. He throws him out the window, you hear the guy scream, then he unleashes all his demons, and it's like, the demons have, like, creepy design, like, they're actually, like, I kept leaning over to my friends and being like, this is a kid-friendly movie, right? Because there were a lot of kids in that movie theater, more than I usually see in, like, MCU movies. But, like, I feel like everything else in the movie was very kid-friendly, lighthearted, but the violence level of the villain was, like, DC villain violence level, not MCU villain violence level. Like, there were things they showed with the demons and the stuff that I'm like, the Marvel movies would have cut away and then would have like panned away or shown a different shot or cut away before that happened. But this movie was just like, no, it's fine. And I liked that. I'm like, okay, that makes me more interested in this villain when you have him do that. And then, of course, there's the climax where Shazam fights the villain. I think the climax runs a little long. There's a certain point in the final battle that I feel like is the climax of that battle and should be about where it ends or close to where it ends, but instead it goes on for another 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this final fight seems a little long. But it was also like, it's also like a family uniting scene, because it's not just Shazam, he's got the whole Foster family with him, and I'm not going to detail too much about that because I don't want to spoil that. But it's just, I don't want to spoil any more than I already have. But it's just a really like wholesome, fun movie, great message about family. I realized it's like really inclusive. I normally don't talk about inclusivity in movies of like minorities and stuff because I usually don't care that much. But like I'm realizing I'm like that his Billy's best friend kid in the Foster family is a disabled kid. He walks with a crutch. One of the characters might be gay. There's a line alluding to that one of the kids might be gay. They have a great representation of foster families. Like if you've ever anyone running a foster family should take their kids to see this movie because it's such a good freaking wholesome representation of foster families and so supportive of them. There's one shot where it shows the mom's bumper sticker pretty late in the movie. The foster mom's bumper sticker on the car of "I'm a foster mom. What's your superpower?" And as cheesy as that is, that pretty much encapsulates the whole movie's idea almost, like the whole message behind the movie. So this is like Shazam is a like subtly inclusive, really wholesome message with like empowered characters and like that's also just really fun and funny. And then Captain Marvel is doing all of those things but just in a more way. So that's what, good job DC, you finally did it. You made me interested in one of your movie series. I'm definitely going to see the Black Adam movie or the Shazam 2 or whatever the heck comes next because I was really, really impressed by Shazam. Go see Shazam. See Captain Marvel if you want. Wait till it comes out on DVD. Just rent it one day. That's what I do about Marvel movies. I don't care about Marvel movies I miss. A lot of movies I miss that I just, like Wonder Woman. I did that with Wonder Woman. And unlike Wonder Woman, Shazam doesn't bungle its final act. Like, the battle's a little long, but it's still good. Also, the sun is really starting to reflect off my face. It's splitting me in half. Also, the villain of Shazam is Sans Undertale. He has the blue eye, and he sends demons out of his blue eye. So just,